Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please continue standing for invocation. Pastor Tony Pierce from the First Baptist Church.
Mr. Kavanaugh. Council, thank you for allowing me to be here. It's a privilege to pray with you. Let's pray together. Father, we are grateful to you for your goodness and your love in every area of life. We thank you have great plans for us. You tell us that you love us and you have only good for us. Father, we thank you for those you put in leadership positions. We pray you give them wisdom and strength to carry out the things that need to happen for this community, in our country, and around the world. Thank you for your grace. Thank you most of all for your Son, Jesus. In his name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Pastor, thank you for joining us today. We have roll call, please, Beth.
Mayor Kavanaugh?
Here.
Councilmember Yates?
Present.
Councilmember Lachey?
Here.
Councilmember Brown?
Here.
Councilmember Hanson? Councilmember Dickey? And Councilmember Elkey is absent.
Thank you. Going to my mayor's report. Last week was a very productive and successful League of Cities and Towns conference. I thought it was much better than last year in the way of learning seminars, especially the first day of the conference. It was difficult to decide which seminars to attend. They were all so good. But besides the learning seminars, the networking at this conference was very useful for me and our town. 91 cities and towns were represented by their mayors. What a unique opportunity I had to discuss with the mayors of the small towns like ours, some of whom I don't have contact with all year. The news from the mayors was encouraging. Most of the small cities and towns are experiencing growth in the housing industry, and they all seem to agree that the economy is looking good for them. There are still some challenges, and we talked about them and ways that we could help and support each other. Small cities and towns have very similar needs. We all share some common problems, quite different from the bigger cities. All the cities and towns also discussed the great success we had forming a united front to fight the TPP that had been introduced into the legislature last session. If not for the mayors to band together to fight this, our towns would have lost a substantial amount of revenue. I also spent every waking moment during the week networking with our service providers, EPCOR, who are the owners of Chaparral Water, SRP, and Republic Services, our trash collector, as well as other representatives of major companies and corporations. With EPCOR, I discussed the issue that has recently been brought to my attention by a resident, fluctuating water pressure in a certain part of town. I met with the operations manager, and earlier this week I have followed up with him on solutions to this problem. I also met with the vice president of the company and our community relations director to discuss a proposal of mine for them giving back to the community. We also discussed the many water main breaks we had had in recent months. With SRP, I discussed the recent outages and new ways for our residents to get information when that happens. There were some problems during that last outage with communication with those houses that were affected. With Republic Services, we continued our discussion about their new Give Back program that is being coordinated by them and a committee made up of residents of our town. That program will soon be ready for community projects. We also discussed further give-backs to the community, and I am very pleased that they will be a sponsor for the new press box at the high school. Some residents did contact me before my trip, and I have already contacted them with the answers or information they requested from these providers. There were a lot of other companies at the conference, and I was able to gather information about what they had to offer us, especially the new technology that's out there. The League itself has put together a marketing program on their website that is free for us to use, and it offers way we can advertise our events or important happenings on their site, which is viewed by all 91 cities and towns and the various other interested industries. The 4 days I spent in Tucson will see benefits for our town now and in the near future. It was a very worthwhile trip. Today we were honored to have a visit from Governor Brewer. We were able to once again show off Fountain Hills and let her meet the wonderful residents that we have here. She was very pleased with the welcome that she got from so many residents who came to talk to her, to the dignitaries who showed up to greet her. I believe this is only her second time that she's come to visit us. She said she loves her town, and it was just great to be able to show it off to her. So we're pleased that she was able to be with us today. I would like to go on to a recognition of our Strategic Planning Advisory Commission members. There are 3, one of whom is here with us today: Denise Atwood, Mike Dooley, and Sarah Trailer. Sarah was our student representative, and I would like to thank all 3 of them for the service that they have given, all the volunteer hours that they put in to serve on that commission. With us today is Mr. Mike Dooley. Mike, you want to come up? I have a certificate of appreciation for Mike Dooley for his dedicated service on the Strategic Planning Advisory Commission. Thank you, Mike. All of the people who volunteer on our commissions put in a great deal of time, and we do appreciate all that they do for us. They make our job a little bit easier. And now I have recognition of the Town of Fountain Hills Arizona Parks and Recreation Association Awards. Ken, we got another award.
Only because we have good staff that received them. With that, and I'd like to turn it over to Brian Hughes for the presentation.
Mayor Kavanaugh, council members, we're excited tonight to be here to recognize the 2 awards that were awarded last week at the Arizona Parks and Recreation Association's annual conference at the Scottsdale Fairmont Princess. We only submitted 2 awards, so we were very fortunate to receive both of them. The awards are chosen by a committee of Parks and Recreation professionals from around the state of Arizona, and our submissions stood out this year, and we think they deserve to be. So with that, I wanted to show you the quick presentations that were shown at the awards banquet, and then have the recipients come up and be recognized.
Outstanding Media Award. In a small community with limited marketing resources, the support of a local newspaper is essential to the success of an organization. The Times and Letgo and their staff have been instrumental in marketing the town of Fountain Hills Community Services and the success of the programs and events. The Times is a weekly newspaper that is independently owned and operated, which reaches 4,800 homes and businesses. The Times publishes the weekly schedule of activities of the town's community center, weekly senior services program offerings, as well as press releases announcing recreation programs and events. The Times also distributes an email blast to subscribers each weekday called the 4:30 News. It often includes information on recreation and senior programs, special events, Community Services Advisory Commission meeting notices and agenda topics, as well as other parks and recreation-related news. The monthly publication, Let's Go, frequently features articles and pictures related to the town of Fountain Hills Community Services Department. Often, coverage is on the front page and is a main headline. This coverage helps keep Fountain Hills residents informed on the programs and events available to them, as well as development issues related to parks, trails, and open space. The Times has been a sponsor of the Turkey Trot 5K Run and Fitness Walk since 1991, and has sponsored movies in the park each spring and fall. In 2011, the town of Fountain Hills faced additional budget cuts as a result of the ongoing recession, including the elimination of over $26,000 in funding to produce and distribute the Community Services Department's In the Loop Community Activity Guide. The initial online-only version of the publication received limited views, and enrollment in recreation programs declined. Alan Cruikshank, publisher of the Times, offered the option of including a reduced 4-page insert of In the Loop in the monthly Let's Go publication at no cost to the town. It will be ad-supported and allow the town to continue to market programs and events. The partnership resulted in an immediate increase in attendance in recreation programs and continues to be one of the department's main marketing tools for upcoming programs and events. Brian Hughes, Recreation Supervisor, states, "The town of Fountain Hills is lucky to have such a great local newspaper that recognizes the importance of parks and recreation in the community. I can't imagine another local paper providing the coverage of parks and recreation that Fountain Hills receives from these two publications." Please recognize the Fountain Hills Times and Let's Go as the 2013 Media Award winner for APRA.
And that was the first one. And I'll have them come up, but Mike Sarno, the editor of The Times, is here, and Linda McThrall, the editor of Let's Go, are here too, and they were both able to attend last week's presentation. And the next award.
Young Professional Award. Kathy Worrell joined the town of Fountain Hills Community Services Department as a recreation coordinator in January 2007. Kathy's previous professional experience included working for the City of Mesa in special events and for the City of Scottsdale at the Via Linda Senior Center. Her prior experience and her outgoing personality have been an asset in her current position with the town of Fountain Hills, coordinating youth and teen programs, special interest classes, and special events. A graduate from ASU with a bachelor's degree in recreation management and a minor in travel and tourism, she also holds a certificate in hospitality management, and in 2006 became a certified parks and recreation professional. In recent years, Kathy has made a huge impact on the teen programs in Fountain Hills. With her creativity and knowledge, she was able to restructure the teen programs that were established and then develop partnerships with the local Midnight Madness Foundation, supported by the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office and the Fountain Hills Youth Substance Abuse Coalition. With the new programming ideas, the participant numbers have increased tremendously in a short amount of time. Kathy also worked very closely with the Mayor's Youth Council, teen group with an interest in local government and community service. For the first time ever, in 2011, seniors that graduated from Fountain Hills High School were recognized for their involvement with the Mayor's Youth Council and had graduation cords reflecting their involvement for the graduation gown. It is Kathy's creativity and innovation that are leading to greater teen involvement in programs. Kathy served as the first APRA social media coordinator and was the social co-chair for the 2012 APRA conference. She's also served as membership chair for the Rec Pros Grant from 2002 to 2005 and as chair of the Youth and Teen Branch in 2008. Kathy is also a regular contributor to the APRA magazine. In addition to her many responsibilities with the town of Fountain Hills and APRA, Kathy serves as the volunteer chair of the Fiesta Bowl Parade Executive Committee. She serves in the Arizona Festival and Events Association and has been a volunteer on the Super Bowl Host Committee. Community Services Director Mark Mayer stated, "If I only had one word to describe Kathy, it would be enthusiasm. She exudes it. Being around her, you cannot help but be affected by her passion for what she does. She breathes energy into all of us. She has been and continues to be a great addition to our staff and our community." APRA congratulates Kathy Worrell from the town of Fountain Hills as recipient of the 2013 APRA Young Professional Award.
So again, we were very lucky to have such a great partnership with the Times and Let's Go and Alan and again all the staff too. Bob's here at everything, and so he contributes just as much as everybody. So and then Kathy has done a great job since she's been with us. So we hope to continue to get some awards, and we like the recognition that Fountain Hills gets from everything we do. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations, Mike, Linda, the Times. Convey my congratulations to Alan and Kathy. Congratulations. Wonderful. Mhm. Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Okay. We'll go on to the consent agenda. Consideration of approving the town council meeting minutes from August 15, 2013. Consideration of resolution 2013-37 approving an intergovernmental agreement with the Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation relating to Proposition 202 funding. Consideration of approving a wine festival wine fair license application submitted by Suvino Winery for the Great Grape Stomp 5K Run and Wine Festival scheduled for November 2nd, 2013 from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on the Avenue of the Fountain. Consideration of approving an application from Fire Rock Golf and Country Club, LLC, for an interim permit and person transfer Series 6 liquor license. Consideration of approving 7 special event liquor license applications submitted by the Fountain Hills and Lower Verde Valley Museum and Historical Society for the purpose of fundraisers, scheduled for September 18, 2013 from 5 to 8 p.m., November 20th, 2013 from 5 to 8 p.m., January 15th, 2014 from 5 to 8 p.m., January 25th, 2014 from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., March 15th, 2014 from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., March 19th, 2014 from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m., May 21st, 2014 from 5 to 8 p.m. with all fundraisers held at the community center. Consideration of approving the special event liquor license application submitted by the American Legion Post 58 for the purpose of a fundraiser scheduled for November 23rd, 2013 from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. at the American Legion. Consideration of approving a special event liquor license application submitted by the Kiwanis Club for the purpose of a fundraiser scheduled for March 14th to 16th, 2014 from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on the Avenue of the Fountain. And I'd like to request a motion to accept the consent agenda as listed.
Mayor, second?
And roll call, please.
Councilmember Yates.
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson. Councilmember Lecce.
Aye.
Councilmember Dickey. Vice Mayor Elke.
Aye.
Councilmember Brown.
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Mayor 7-0.
Thank you. We'll go on to regular agenda items. Number 14, consideration of resolution 2013-35 approving the First Amendment to the IGA with the Maricopa County Library District related to the operation of the Town of Fountain Hills Branch Library.
Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council, Community Service Director has a report regarding this request. Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council, a number of years ago, the town of Fountain Hills entered an agreement with the Library District of Maricopa County for services at the library. Since that time, obviously, the development of Centennial Circle has piqued their interest on the part of the library to be able to utilize that for space for their programs. They have made that request to the town. The town attorney prepared an agreement. They have reviewed that agreement and approved it as to form and content, and it's for your consideration this evening. A couple important notes. We follow the same list of criteria that is available on the library's lease at this point, and that is if the facility is made available to them free of charge. We would do the same thing at the Centennial Circle. The only additional requirement we put in the agreement was that they would follow the normal procedure for booking it through the town staff. With that, I would be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, any questions from council? Yes, Councilman Lecce.
Thank you, Mayor. Mark had an opportunity to review the policy. Thanks for that. I was just curious, it talked about district events. Can you give an example of what a district event would be or type of event that would be held at Centennial Circle?
At this point, they've only handled a couple of events. They have a group that meets on a regular basis that practices guitar. They also indicated that there would be some times when they would invite other districts to join them for an activity that might move from site to site. And some of those would look for an outdoor venue. So those were the kind of things that they anticipated. They tried to make the agreement as broad as possible because frankly, they didn't necessarily have anything sometimes specific in mind. They just wanted some flexibility.
Very good, thanks. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay, and I just have a comment. I was on the Public Art Committee when we put together the Centennial Circle and the library. We couldn't have done it without them. Their support. Stan Connick, their board member, was the one who did the architectural drawings, and I know they contributed financially to the circle too. So I'm glad that we have an agreement with them to use it. Thanks, Mark. Anything else? All right, then can I have a motion, please? Yes?
Motion to approve resolution number 2013-35.
Second.
Okay, speaker card?
No, Mayor.
Okay. Then all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, 7-0.
Thank you.
Number 15, discussion with possible direction regarding the fire station number 2 relocation project. Ken, please.
Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council, as you know, Fire Station 2 in its current location has served the community well. Emergency response times were adequate during the early years of Fountain Hills and Fountain Hills development history. Now, due to the growth in the western portions of the community, emergency response times have been a concern in recent years, and a need to relocate Station 2 is in order to a more appropriate location to maintain the desired emergency responses for a balanced approach on the south side of Fountain Hills. Attached, you have a document that Chief Roberts and I will give a presentation for in a second, but addressing the possible relocation of Station 2. You recall in 2012 the town of Fountain Hills council addressed in a strategic planning retreat as a priority to address the discussions and consideration of Station 2 relocation. Shea Boulevard site was selected at that time, and I believe that goes back to 2007 time frame. This effort was a respond to a possible federal FEMA grant opportunity that did not transpire. In April of 2013, the Town Council adopted a fire station location master plan, which serves as the planning tool for locating the fire stations and emergency medical services throughout the community to address both current and future needs. At the time for build-out of the community. So as you can see in the staff report, it's recommended that 2 sites be considered. The first site was the original Shea Boulevard site, and the second is the Fountain Hills Boulevard site and Muskrat intersection site. Both sites are adequate locations for the Station 2 relocation consideration. Staff is seeking tonight direction from the Town Council whether to, one, stay the course and continue to designate the Shea Boulevard site for Station 2, or consider an alternate site, which is adequate as well on the Fountain Hills Boulevard site. Should the Town Council consider exploring the Fountain Hills Boulevard site, there are 2 prerequisites that we recommend that should be undertaken. One of them is a public outreach effort with the affected areas on the Fountain Hills Boulevard Muskrat Lane site to gather input and bring back to the council. 2, to determine the feasibility of a land trade that could occur for the sited property on Fountain Hills Boulevard site with the current property owner, which is MCO Development Corporation. So with that, I'd like to ask Chief Roberts to give a presentation regarding the report, and then staff. Chief Roberts and I will be happy to answer any questions regarding possible direction.
Mayor Kavanaugh and Council, I'd like to just give you a brief overview with this little PowerPoint that I put together. It's just a brief overview of the staff report for Fire Station 2 relocation that we prepared. Careful analysis is really needed when placing fire stations. As you know, it's a considerable community investment, and the location has a large impact on the safety of our public and the welfare of our community. And these are some of the factors that we consider when we are looking at this. Number 1 is response time, and of course it's not there on accident. Response time is the major thing. We'll go through each of these individually. The secondary coverage, and that's dependent on if units are out of service or if they need more than 1 unit to respond. Balanced call volume, Property availability is important. Neighborhood integration, utilities, topography, and ingress and egress and the safety of that. We had the two sites identified. The Shea Boulevard site, of course, is the one that was the original selection, and the Fountain Hills Boulevard at Muskrat Drive site. The Shea site, of course, we've gone down that road of developing plans, and we have a $143,000 investment to make that shovel-ready at the time, looking for that federal grant that we unfortunately didn't receive. And then, of course, since that time, the other lot became available to us as a consideration. The unit response, as I mentioned, the response times is certainly the most important part of this thing. We looked at NFPA 1710 as far as national standards go. We looked at best practices. We looked at where other communities are trying to be with their response times. We determined that we want to be pretty much anywhere in that protected area within 5 minutes, 90% of the time. And as you'll see on these two maps here, at the Shea site, you'll look at the green area. That's the first due response area that we could hit in 5 minutes. And then if you look at the Fountain Hills Boulevard site, it's kind of the purple color there. And you can see that we have good coverage from both sites to get to the areas of service in 5 minutes, 90% of the time. At the Shea site, you'll see pretty much that we're got a lot of coverage going down Shea into Scottsdale. And if we look at the Fountain Hills site, it kind of terminates just past our border a little bit, but we still get good coverage on the Beeline area right here. You'll also notice that at the Shea site, we don't head very far north into our area, which is probably the busiest area, which is our core, is right in here. Fountain Hills Boulevard site does move farther north into our core area as well. And that becomes important when we talk about the secondary coverage. Whenever our busiest station is out of service because of a call or any other reason, we have to have secondary coverage. We have to have another truck that can respond into that core area. And so the closer they are to each other, that actually helps us. As well as when we have structure assignments or multiple patient assignments where we're using both of our stations, it's nice when they are able to cover each other like that. The other issue is balanced call volume. And what that has to do with is, ideally in a perfect world, we'd like both stations responding on similar amounts of calls. Everybody keeps their skill sets fresh, the equipment gets balanced usage, and it works out better for everybody. Sometimes when you have a slow station, you have a little bit of degradation of skill. So ideally, that's what you want. We're probably never going to get there. Station 1 will always be our busiest station. But the busier we can make Station 2, the less load that Station 1 has to handle. So that's where we're looking for at the balanced call volume. Next item we looked at is property availability. Of course, the Shea Boulevard site is part of town-owned property. It's part of the right-of-way of Shea Boulevard. And it's kind of a long, narrow piece, as you know. Fountain Hills Boulevard at Muskrat is MCO-owned at this point, and there would be a land swap required. Neighborhood integration is extremely important, and when we went down this road with the Shea Boulevard site, we did meet with the neighbors in actually two separate meetings, and there was actually not a whole lot of dissension, not a lot of concern, except one area from Westridge was a little bit concerned about it. But I think if you look at that 1,000-foot perimeter around there, there's not a lot of homes in there. You get down into Eagle Mountain, you'll see some big homes, but they're so much lower, they didn't seem to have any major concerns. Like I said, the main concerns came from the Westridge area right up in here. And I think after our meeting, I think most of their concerns were pretty much alleviated. So if we were to move forward on looking at the Fountain Hills Boulevard site, we'd have to follow some similar type of a process to meet with those neighbors. As you can see in this drawing here, our closest home is about 150 feet away. And if you look, there's not a whole lot of homes. There's about 5 that are in that very close proximity that would have a view of the fire station, actually. If you look down on Palatial Estates, you'll see some homes that are built over here already that would have a distant view of it. And of course, there's potential lots over here that would be able to see the fire station site as well. But it is very important that we become a good neighbor. We have a long track history of being good neighbors with our current fire station sites, and we want to continue that, of course. So we would like to actually have lots of neighborhood input if we could. Next big thing is utility availability. This really plays into the cost of building a new fire station. If you look at this, water, we both have, both fire station sites have water availability. Both stations sites have electricity available. When we get into the sanitary sewer, that's where we have an issue. The Shea Boulevard site, we learned initially from the last go around that there was a long run down Shea Boulevard to get to where we needed to tap into the sewer connection there. And even though it would have been expensive, it would have been probably the best option at the time. They're looking at about $200 a foot in just general numbers to run one of these things. Unfortunately, when the climbing lane went in on Shea Boulevard, it kind of took away that option. That area that would have gone into is now paved over. So there's just a couple other options. One of them would be to go underneath Shea, to bore underneath, and to be able to drop down into Fire Rock, and we'd have to acquire an easement at that point from one of the property owners to get into the Fire Rock area. So there'd be some issues with that, definitely, that would cause us some problems. The Fountain Hills Boulevard at Muskrat has sanitary sewer right on site. Another issue we look at is that affects our cost is topography. If you look at the Shea Boulevard site, it's kind of a long, narrow lot. It caused our architects a little bit of challenge to be able to fit it in there. It's kind of between two little hills. Got a little hill over here to the west, and then a little hill over here kind of to the northeast. And so basically that station was kind of designed to fit in between those two. You can see our little footprint we have right there. Unfortunately, the size of the lot does not really allow for a pull-through fire station. We'd have to pretty much pull into the parking lot and then back in every time we went on a call and returned, which causes, just a little bit of problem with us. Sometimes we end up with, an increase in backing accidents, which we don't like to have. We make sure our firefighters have to get off every time they back up. So it causes them just a little bit of trouble. On the other hand, we got the Fountain Hills Boulevard site. You can see here, the site is actually much larger. It actually encompasses clear down here, but this is kind of the building envelope area that we kind of identified. It's got kind of just a gentle slope heading up to the north there. Probably be a quite a bit simpler site to build on, less cut and fill issues. There's kind of a little footprint as we could see it, and that site would allow for a pull-through fire station. As you can see, we have kind of the same size footprint on that little building that's represented there in kind of the red area as the other site. So we'd have about the same square footage. We'd have two bays just like the other station, but it would have the option for the fire truck to drive around back and pull through without the backing issue. And finally, ingress, egress, and safety we want to talk about as well. If you look at Shea Boulevard, as you know, it's a major highway, 6 lanes of traffic, road width is 100 feet, speed limit is 50 miles an hour, and the traffic volume is about 24,000 cars per day. And according to our town engineer, a traffic control device would probably be mandatory on that to be safe. If we look at the Fountain Hills Boulevard site, at Muskrat, it is a major street, 4 lanes of traffic, road width is about 60 feet, speed limit 35, and the traffic volume is about half of what the Shea Boulevard site is. And our engineer has not determined if the traffic control device would be necessary. He doesn't think that it would require full signalization. He believes probably either nothing or maybe small flashing lights like you might see at a school zone might be sufficient. And that concludes that. I'd be happy to take any questions you might have for us.
I was wondering if you had some idea of what the cost of this sanitary sewer line that would have to be, sounds like really expensive digging. I mean, besides the fact that you would have to get a homeowner, is that right? A homeowner to agree for an easement?
Correct. There's no easements that are sufficient currently to go through there. And just in visiting with the sanitary district, all they've said was it's expensive. You're going to need extra manholes because you would be dropping so much elevation too. And so that, in addition to boring under Shea, would be expensive, but I don't have any actual numbers.
But so it's just expensive.
Yes.
And I guess the other main concern I had was the safety. I noticed that the 23,971 cars was in 2010. So I'm sure with the widening of the road and the speed sometimes increases with that a little bit, and I'm sure there's more cars than that. Is there any up-to-date about how many cars are now?
Yeah, Mayor Kavanaugh, those were actually the latest numbers that we were able to get.
Yeah, I'm just guessing that it's probably more, and with the paved roads, people have a tendency to go a little faster. Even if you had a signal, you would control the signals that are there now. So I guess there's still a problem that cars would get through when you were trying to pull out?
Yeah, originally our idea was to control both signals at Fountain Hills Boulevard and Palisades Boulevard there with our preemption devices that we have that change the signals currently. The problem is we're probably going to have a lot of cars that will bleed through before that signal accident is able to take place. So we still have an issue. It would definitely help, but our engineer now seems to think that we would need signalization.
Okay. And I guess just for now, the last question I had is that have you spoken with MCO about the land swap and the possibility of doing that
I'll have to defer to
for the site
Shannon.
on Muskrat?
Mayor Kavanaugh moves the council preliminarily, but we haven't solidified the conditions and basically put it in writing. Didn't want to extend the effort, and if the council didn't want to go down that path. So I wanted to determine the direction tonight, find out if you want to do that. We'll start that tomorrow morning.
Okay. All right. I know we do have I see a representative of MCO in the audience in case there is a question. Maybe he can answer it later on about that land swap, if he doesn't mind. Okay. Anyone else have questions? Councilman?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Randy. Actually, this is for you, Mr. Buchanan. The property that we have in Eagles Nest, other than, I know it was part of the development agreement when we did with MCO, and that it was to be set aside in case we wanted to build a fire station. We're not allowed to sell that land, correct?
As I understand it, yes.
If we did do a land swap, regardless of whether we built on it, would we be able to sell Muskrat?
To sell Muskrat, meaning
If we did the land trade, because we can't sell Eagles Nest, regardless of whether or not we built on Muskrat, would we then have some land that in the event we decided to build on Shea, we could sell that land?
I don't know if that would be in the option
Okay.
at this point in time.
And then my last question, the land that we have on Shea right now, in the event we do the land swap and we build on Muskrat, could we sell the land on Shea?
No,
Okay. Thank you.
that's right of way.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions? Councilwoman Dickey.
Thank you, Mayor. And going along a little bit with what Cecil was talking about, we were just talking about values and of land, and just because I want you to know that I did ask Randy ahead of time about that, and it's since it's a right of way, because I thought, well, what if it's a lot, and even if we don't put a fire station on it, would we ever want sewer to it? You know, so to know whether this was something worthwhile doing anyway. But I believe Randy pretty much said that since it's just almost like a wide area of right-of-way, it really wouldn't be conducive, or there would be little occasion for us to want to do that and put sewer there for any other reason or sell it. And is that what you would say? Did I get that right?
Mayor and Council, I would probably not be the expert on that, but that would be my assessment.
Okay. Then, Mayor, that was part of it, because we're trying to figure out, you know, we're trying to hold on to the assets of our town and to be good, you know, good guardians of that. The property that is the property that we're talking about on Muskrat, that is zoned for residential, right? So what could, I'm anticipating going out to neighbors, what could possibly be at that site on Muskrat, and then part two of that is, do we have to change the zoning to put the fire station there?
Would depend on a site plan, I believe, or the willingness of the property owner to find out what's there. I'm not sure how much of that can actually be used. We're looking at it from fire department perspective only.
So, Mayor, and I'll finish up here, but I think we're, for me anyway, I'm seeing some questions that are still lingering, and I just want to make sure that I understand what you'd like to see from us, which is, maybe the go-ahead to really seriously look at the Muskrat property, but not like sit here right here tonight and say definitely no to Shea, definitely yes, because these are pretty big questions. We're not getting a number on what the cemetery is. We're not really getting a number on the value of the land or whether we could sell it if we get it, but then decide we don't want to put the fire station there. So I still think there's some balls in the air, but if I have it right, really you're looking to see if we're at least in agreement to go ahead and do due diligence for Muskrat.
Ken, I believe Councilman Dickey also asked, does the zoning have to be changed to put the firehouse there? And the answer is, Andrew?
Ma'am, no. Not as long as the town is in possession of the lot, you don't need to change the zoning for whatever use you want.
Okay. And since you said that, this might not be a time that you want to make an absolute decision because you have other questions, I just wanted to mention that our Public Safety Commission has offered to look into both sites and do some extensive research for us, and then to come back with an unbiased look at both of the properties if we would like to delegate that to them. And of course, the final decision would be ours, but they would do some of that legwork for us. Councilman Vice Mayor Upton.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that there's a couple of things at issue here now. First of all, if we did a land swap, Andrew or Ken, there's a discussion when we say land swap, it's basically the town's right at Eagles Nest to build a fire station, which we've pretty much agreed that we're not going to build a fire station there. We can't do anything else with the property, Andrew, as I understand, except build a fire station there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
We cannot sell the property, we can't lease the property, we can't do anything. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So if we were to do a land swap with MCO in this situation, do a land swap where we'd have the Muskrat property in fee simple. Is that correct, Andrew?
That's been our intent.
Okay, and fee simple means what, for those that don't know?
Freely alienable.
We can sell it, do with it whatever we want, sell it, lease it, borrow against it.
And that's been the town's position.
Okay, so if we were to do the land swap in a fee simple, so then we would have the property outright. So I think the first question is not necessarily to go down the road as far as vetting the Muskrat Trail or the location first. The first thing, the most important thing to me, at least right now, is there's nobody else that's interested in that property at Eagles Nest except for MCO. And the only reason is because MCO is the only one that could do anything with the property up there. So we have basically a situation here where MCO is willing to swap land, swap the property for a potential fire station or anything else that the town might want to do with that particular property. So instead of convoluting this and saying, are we going to put a fire station there or not, I think the first step would be to enter into an agreement with MCO to do the land swap so we have the property to do with it what we want. Whether we put a fire station there or not, I suppose we could do that simultaneously. But I don't think that we should be tying the two together because if we vet it and I think it just creates potential problems there. So I think the first step is to look at the values. And as I understand, wasn't there already an appraisal done as far as the Muskrat property and then the Eagles Nest value?
Yes.
Did that come out comparable?
The appraisal.
And that was our appraisal, is that right?
I don't remember how many years ago it was, Councilmember, but it was. It was quite a few years ago. The appraisals probably wouldn't be of value to us anymore, except what we did determine at that time, and we're going to assume that both properties are.
Didn't we not just have an appraisal recently? I thought I had heard that we had an appraisal recently. Am I misremembering?
By recently, it was
like within the past 18 months at most.
No.
Okay.
But they were of comparable value. One lot at Muskrat per the Eagles Nest lot, they were on about comparable value then. So our assumption is that they both would be about the same place again.
And the thing I think to take into consideration too is we can't do anything with that property, whether it's comparable or not. We can't do anything with it. So I think this first step should be for us to advance and move towards executing the land swap with MCO, and then have this discussion whether we have a fire station at Muskrat or a fire station on Shea. And I would be more in line. I certainly appreciate public safety being willing to do some investigation. I would like to hear from staff as to what the costs would be, just basically line items there saying this is what it would cost to build it on Muskrat, this is what the bottom line would be basically for Shea, and then we can go with the public discussions and the forums and those sorts of things. But I just don't want to see this convoluted, and I don't want us to lose an opportunity to get a piece of land that we can do something with. Chaparral Water has property back behind there.
perhaps there's some interest at some point in the future. I don't know, I'm speculating here, but I think it would be an opportunity for us to come out ahead. So I would encourage us to move in that step first, and then perhaps the second step would be comparing those, because then we have the property to compare it with. Otherwise, we're just speculating. Thank you.
Just a question along that line, maybe for Andrew. That piece that's being held right now up in Eagles Nest, MCO is not under any obligation to swap with us. I thought that the reason that they were willing to swap was for a firehouse. So I've never heard that they would just be willing to swap the property so that we could have the other property. So I'm not sure that was ever discussed.
Madam Mayor, we've never gotten to that point of discussions. The furthest we've ever gotten along was comparing values and just discussing, was that a viable option for a trade? But we've never really gotten to the point of determining uses or any details at all of a sale. We're just not that far down the road to be able to give you an answer on that.
Okay, so it's possible that MCO is just willing to swap the land if we want it for a fire station. They not just to swap the land so that we could do something else with it.
I wouldn't even want to speak to them.
Right, I've just never heard of that, except that they were willing to do that because of the fire station. So it's just something new.
But Mayor, I'm sorry, Mayor, but is it your understanding that MCO would have a condition that if we swap that we not put a fire station there?
No. I thought that the reason that they were willing to swap with us was that they put the placeholder in Eagles Nest, and then they were willing to hold that just to swap with us something else if we wanted to put a fire station at Muskrat or in another piece of property that is owned by them. But they're under no obligation to swap with us for any other reason, is what I'm saying. Yes, Councilman Yates.
Jeremy, would you be willing to come up? I'm
Okay.
sorry, Madam Mayor.
Well, I didn't want to put him on the spot.
I have no problem putting him on the
He looked like he was wiggling in his seat. Okay.
Madam Mayor.
Hi, Jeremy.
Hi. Jeremy, how are you, sir?
I'm fine, thanks.
Obviously, you heard everything. And there's nothing wrong with your intention of the lot that we're willing to swap to you. And I appreciate you have an opportunity to potentially build some homes. But could you elaborate on some of the discussion we're having as to the stipulations if you were engaged to swap with us, what we could or couldn't do with Muskrat?
Okay. First of all, I think Mr. McGuire was correct, because the appraisals the town had done was some time ago, probably at least a couple of years ago. It wasn't 6 or 7 years ago, but it was probably in the last 2 or 3 years. And the values came in, I think, exactly the same. So that was encouraging. We don't have any intention of putting any kind of stipulation on the land that we would convey to the town. So if the town wanted to use it for another purpose, I certainly wouldn't object to it.
Okay.
We would, the only stipulation that we would like to have in the swap is that we have an entitled site that's going to the town. We'd like an entitled site coming back to us. So, in other words, a residential site for a residential site. And that's it.
All right. Any other questions for Jeremy while he's up here? No? Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Jeremy, do you have any recollection of any appraisal that was done any time on that Muskrat property that you have?
Yeah, the town had one done. I didn't get a copy of it. I just got a report from it. I think, Bev, didn't you have it? Have one? I'd have to look. I've got an.
So it's more than 12 months ago, so before.
Oh, yeah.
And
It was more than it's dated.
More than 90 days.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
A lot more.
It was.
Years ago?
it was a year. It was a year ago. I think just over a year.
No.
Just before 10,
I've been here a year and a half. So.
Okay, 18 months.
It was when Rick was here. Yeah, Rick was one that commissioned it. Yeah.
But I think that was in 11, wasn't it? 2011.
Like I said, I think it's at least a couple of years.
Memory serves me right that those were 2011 appraisals.
Any other questions for Jeremy? No? Okay.
Thank
Oh,
you.
great.
Just one, so are we gonna look at two different things, like maybe saying, let's go ahead and examine the land swap as something separate, and then also make another maybe motion to go ahead and looking at that property for the fire station, or how are you looking at this?
Amendment.
Yes.
Because the fire station 2 relocations are agenda items, let's keep them together if we can.
Agenda item. Okay.
But
Well,
this is a potential first step towards the relocation.
okay, we do have the option. All right, go ahead, Councilman Hayes.
Oh, thank you,
Comment
Madam
on
Mayor.
that?
No, I was gonna say that I kind of think we should almost go with what Vice Mayor Elke said. Let's do both simultaneously. But I think the land swap, I think that's in everyone's best interest. Give them the opportunity to build a couple more houses and at least position us in a spot that no matter which way we go, we're sitting pretty. So, thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so,
Mayor.
just want to throw back on the table. I'm sorry, go ahead. Do you want to comment also?
Sure, yeah. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate Councilman Vice Mayor Elke's approach in terms of bifurcating both of these. I'm not sure if that's appropriate with the way the agenda item is written. The only caution I have there in terms of bifurcating, if we go out and engage in this discussion, negotiation, and acquire that property, before we engage in any outreach, it's going to look like we have predetermined that site for a fire station prior to soliciting input from residents, and I think that would not be a good precedent to set. I would like to see us bifurcate them, but move together concurrently. In terms of the town manager's expectations on this, it's my understanding that we're not deciding that the site on Shea is on the table or off the table, or the site on Muskrat is on or off the table. In essence, we're giving direction perhaps for staff, Randy, et cetera, to engage in due diligence. And that due diligence to me would consist of the discussion with MCO and setting up a tentative agreement. The due diligence would include outreach to the neighborhood. The due diligence would include some cost estimates that are lacking from my perspective in the staff report, and I have a number of those things that I'd like to look at. Once that information is brought back to us, then we're in a position to say objectively whether we want to go with the Shea site or whether we want to go with the Muskrat site. But I think I have a lot of unanswered questions. For example, the mayor mentioned the notion of the sewer line. I understand that it will be expensive, and we've got an estimate, but I'm kind of a little leery about engaging in a budget item of $2.1 million and making a decision with kind of it's more expensive, it's less expensive. I particularly need some very specific information. That would be a tentative agreement with MCO to see what that looks like, input from the residents to see what that looks like, and some cost information that I think would need to be part of that due diligence. And Mayor, if I may, just as an example, I think you mentioned one on the sanitary district. I'd like a specific number on that. I think we need a specific number. I have a few more here if you bear with me. I still would like to look at assessed or appraised value of a Muskrat site versus the Eagle Nest site. Simply, if we're engaging in a land swap or trade, I want to be able to respond to questions from the taxpayers that we're doing something that makes sense monetarily. I'd like to know what the cost to adapt the Shea Fire Station architectural design is to the Muskrat. Can it be adapted? And if so, what would be the cost associated with that? I'd like to know what the cost estimate would be for a design of the Muskrat site if we're doing it from scratch. We talked about off-site infrastructure, the sanitary district, a specific cost on what that would be. If there's any additional improvements that need to be made. We keep going back and forth whether we need a signal or we don't need a signal. on Shea Boulevard. Also, having visited the site with you, Randy, I pointed out that there may be a need for some off-site infrastructure challenges with Muskrat site as well with respect to the median, moving landscaping, and from my perspective, I know you said that there's not a line of sight issue, but you have down traffic coming around that corner pretty quickly versus up traffic going on Shea Boulevard where you have visibility. So I think we really need to look at what off-site infrastructure challenges there would be. I'd also like to know, in today's dollars, what would be the estimated cost to build our station that we have designed and approved in fiscal 9 and 10 on Shea? Estimated cost of the Muskrat. It appears to me from the drawing that it looks a little different in terms of what you're trying to accomplish. And I agree with you, bringing the engines around rather than backing in. I think that's a real plus. Has there been any outreach in the Muskrat neighborhoods to date? I don't think there has been, and those are questions that I feel we need to have answers to. The staff report was excellent, but it was estimates here and estimates there. I want to be in a position to answer my constituents' questions. And also, I think if we have all this information, we have this comparison and a matrix set up comparing one to the other, that would be very useful information when outreach occurs, whether it's done by staff or it's done by a Public Safety Advisory Council or both. So those would be some things that I need to look at before I can make a decision. And some of my constituents have already asked me questions about this that have read the Fountain Times and know that we're looking at this. Those are questions. I'm not going to put anyone on the spot to come up with answers this evening. And I do have one question which I think you can answer. On the Muskrat site, when we were down there chatting about it, I asked you the question about silent exit or sirens. What are your thoughts on that? Because I think that has a great impact on how the neighborhood will react. Can we come out of there silently, given that location?
Mayor and Council Member Leger, we try to be always very careful how we operate around town. We try to operate quietly if we can, especially at nighttime. We try to be careful and be quiet. The only time we would say that would be different is if we pulled out and we had multiple traffic coming by, and then they'd be forced to turn the sirens on. Yeah, but we try to be very sensitive in neighborhoods the way we operate currently.
So it's conditional then?
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Mayor, thanks for allowing me the extra time here. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
I want to say, very specifically, I have made no predetermined decisions as to which location is better because I too share some of the questions that Councilman Leger has specified. I want to know which one is going to be most cost effective for the town and what's going to be most functional for the town. So we do need some hard numbers in today's dollars as to what that cost is going to be comparing those two sites. However, I don't think that the two should be convoluted. And this is why I have some concerns that if there, we can certainly do these simultaneously, but with these, I have some grave concerns that if we start discussing the Muskrat immediately as a fire station site, we'll have that discussion with the public, which we should, but I don't want it to turn into a situation where then, if that's not going to be the site, we don't do the swap. It just doesn't make financial sense in that way because we have a piece of property that we can't do anything with and we have a piece of property that we're looking to swap that we could do something with. We could potentially, if we decided at the end of the day that the Shea station is a better station and we've done the swap, we sell Muskrat and we use the money to build on Shea. So I certainly want to have the discussion and the input from the public. We do need some hard numbers, but I would like to see us make some movement and move on this and start implementing a plan with MCO to do the swap with the Muskrat property. Certainly have the discussion. The public's going to obviously be involved in this, and I'd like to move in that direction. And then we vet it, we make the decision, and we get our fire station built.
Councilman Dickey?
Thank you, Mayor. The idea of the residents, getting input for the residents, and I think what you said as far as if the swap is done and we can do what we want with the property, that makes the swap not conditional on accepting the fact that we would put the fire station there. But one of my questions that I don't think I've heard an answer to was, if it has, is it residential zoning right now? What can go there? Because even the speaking about a swap could raise some anxiety unless they know what we would do. So even if we didn't do the fire station, what could we do with that property is a conversation to have also. Because I also don't want to have that feeling like well, we've decided it's going to be a fire station, but even if we don't make that decision, but we decide to swap it, I would imagine neighbors would want to know what that means to them too.
Can Andrew answer that question? I mean, what can we do with that property if we swap it?
That's my job there.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Dickey, the town is not limited in its use of property by its zoning ordinance. So because you have the authority to change your zoning ordinance on any piece of property, you're not necessarily governed by it. You can go through the hoops and change it if you want, but it really isn't, it's not something for which municipally owned property is ever regulated. So we don't have zoning consistent with a number of our uses around town. Some of them sit on residentially zoned property, some don't. General plan designations, we try to show them as public uses, but when the town's owning it, it's in whatever form the town wants to do it. Sold to a private developer or to anybody else for private use, the zoning will govern. So you can't really tell someone what it would be used for as a town because the town has all its options available to it. But it is the site is limited itself.
The site is limited itself, Mayor, and just the idea that there's an awareness there, then that, and maybe as this talks go forward, we would be trying to be reassuring in some way if we can, which is maybe why, if it was in one, I kind of have a motion if you want to try, and if it's okay with you, Kate, maybe it'll take it into consideration that we'll also be looking at the swap at the time.
Okay. Before you do that, I did promise public safety that the commission that I would put this out on the table. We all have lots of questions. We're all asking questions about the costs and the safety factor, and we want a good comparison of the two sites. But now we also have another issue that we want investigated. We have an offer from our Public Safety Commission to do this due diligence for us. Certainly by them doing it and working with Randy and with Ken, that this is certainly also going to alleviate some of the enormous amount of staff time that this is going to take. So I still would like to put that on the table. Our commission is public safety. They have been asking for a while to be involved in the location of the fire station too. They are willing to put the work in, not to make the decision, they made that clear, but just to give us the information that we're looking for. They're willing to do the research for us and then come to us and present that information. So I just want to leave that on the table to see if anybody is interested in that. Councilman Yates?
Thank you. Andrew, because this is written as an agenda item specifically about the fire stations, can we split it up as such? Or would we include it in one dual path motion?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Yates, I think if you separate the two, we've strayed off the agenda to something that wasn't really agendized for the purpose of doing the two. It's semantics more than anything else, but it certainly is more true to the agenda to keep them together.
All right. Thank you.
And Councilman Dickey?
Well, I'll give it a shot. Move to direct staff with assistance by our Public Safety Advisory Commission to examine with due diligence the possible relocation of Fire Station Number 2 to the site located on Fountain Hills Boulevard and Muskrat Lane. Muskrat Lane. Is it a lane?
Yes, that's correct.
And is there a second to Councilman Dickey's motion?
Could you repeat that? Did it include the discussion and negotiation with MCO?
I guess my assumption is that you wouldn't even be looking at this as a possible site without looking at the swap. Because if we can't separate that out and we don't want to articulate it that way so that we stay true to the agenda by saying that we're going to do due diligence to have a fire station possibly there, we can't do that without a swap.
Mayor, if I may, so you're making an assumption that included in the due diligence will be the discussion and possible negotiation with MCO?
It would have to.
Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor, it would have to.
Okay, I just wanted clarity. And before, I'll second that, but prior to that, Mayor, did you want a response to your query regarding PSAC before we approve this, to include that?
She included it,
With PSAC?
yes.
Okay, I didn't hear that. Sorry.
You still want a second?
All right, so,
Sure, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the list of questions that I ran off, I hope those have been, indicated. That's definitely something I believe PSAC can do and look into. They may have to work concurrently with staff and with Randy, but I think that's a great task for them.
that was in her motion, that they would work with staff
Very good, thank you.
also. Okay, so there's a motion and a second, and you have comments on?
I do. I'd like to make an amendment just for clarity purposes. Everything that Councilmember Dickey just said, and direct staff to begin discussions and agreement with MCO for a land swap for the Eagles Nest property in Muskrat.
And is there a second to the amendment?
I'll second that.
I'll second that.
All right, then we will vote on the amendment first. Any other discussion on the amendment?
Mayor, is the amendment okay with Andrew?
Okay.
You can do one of two ways. You can either vote on this, or you can have her withdraw the original motion and adopt that as her motion. So what do you choose?
Well, he's amending her motion.
It encompasses everything.
Right.
Yeah.
He's trying to make it easier. Do you want to change yours, or let's vote with what we got?
If Councilmember Dickey withdraws her motion and adopts that as her original, then we just have 1 second and we vote. Otherwise, we vote twice.
Just vote on the amendment, I think.
All right, then Councilman Dickey withdraws? No, you don't withdraw.
Play it out.
All right, so maybe we should make it clear what we're voting on. Would you, just for clarity, read yours again, and then we'll read the amendment again, just so we know. Sure.
Yeah, you bet. Move to direct staff with assistance by the Public Safety Advisory Commission to examine with due diligence the possible relocation of Fire Station 2 to the site located on Fountain Hills Boulevard and Muskrat Lane.
Okay, and your amendment?
The amendment is and direct staff to begin negotiations and discussions with MCO for the land swap for town's property in Eagles Nest with the property on Muskrat as discussed.
Any discussion on the amendment?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Actually, Kate, your amendment had the wording to form an agreement. Doesn't
And form an agreement, excuse me.
Thank you.
The original. And I want to be clear, and with that too, I don't think that PSAC should be participating in a legal aspect, in the legal discussion, so I don't think PSAC should be involved in that aspect. They should only be involved in the feasibility of Muskrat or Shea. No, I think that should be, and that's why I said indirect staff, not PSAC.
Is there a second to the amendment?
Yeah, I seconded.
Seconded,
Yeah.
okay. Any further discussion on the amendment? Then we need a roll call vote. Councilmember Lejay?
Aye.
Councilmember Yates?
Aye?
Vice Mayor Elke?
Aye.
Councilmember Brown?
Aye.
Councilmember Dickey?
Aye.
And Mayor Kavanaugh? Aye. Mayor 6-0. Now we have to go back to the original motion. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on Councilwoman Dickey's motion?
As amended.
As a,
We're voting on my motion as amended, right?
okay. Then we'll have a roll call vote. Councilmember Yates?
Aye?
Councilmember Dickey?
Aye.
Councilmember Brown?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Elke?
Aye.
Councilmember Lejay?
Aye.
And Mayor Kavanaugh? Aye. Mayor 6-0. Okay, we got the vote.
Thank you.
That's the vote twice. All right, let me find out where it was.
Excuse myself.
So noted. Number 16, consideration of resolution 2013-41, an intergovernmental agreement with ADOT for an eastbound bike lane, Shea Boulevard, and that's Saguaro Boulevard to 144th Street.
Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council, town engineers here to provide report regarding the request for the IGA and project on Shea Boulevard.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. The mayor selected the town for a grant of $440,000 in federal aid. It's called CMAQ funding for bike lane on Shea Boulevard. The IGA shows a very long reach, but the map on the board actually shows the piece of bike lane that needs to be constructed yet. Over the years, we've constructed the remaining segments of bike lane on Shea Boulevard, and so that only this segment's the only one left. This is an aerial photograph showing the Shea bike lane piece that is in this project. And this map shows in red the Shea bike lane project and other projects that have been constructed or are currently in design, showing the rest of the bike lane on Shea Boulevard. In addition to the project's primary safety function as a bike lane, the lane will serve as a paved shoulder for any run-off-the-road vehicles, for safer vehicle pull-out width, and it could accommodate an occasional pedestrian in it. When Shea is ultimately widened to its full 3 lanes of eastbound vehicular traffic, this pavement ultimately will be part of the 3rd lane of that roadway, and the pavement design will be adequate for the traffic function in the future. The IGA shows federal funding of $440,000 and a quote, town match plus state design review fees, which the town has of $36,000. Note that the town also has to pay all the design costs on this project. We currently have $115,000 that was previously deposited at ADOT for this project, and after this project's completion, based on the current estimates, we'll probably get a refund of $93,000 toward those previously deposited funds. That includes deducting the state match plus state design review fees, but not the design costs. The town attorney's office has reviewed and approved this IGA, and staff does recommend approval of this. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Is that refund because of the rubberized asphalt that we're not using now?
Mayor, council members, we had deposited the money back a number of years ago when it was a much bigger project, and so with the smaller project, the costs are going to be less, so the town's matching funds will be substantially less. And that's what it is. In the budget, we had hoped to be able to utilize the full extent of the federal aid funding and the full extent of the town's deposited funding by applying a rubberized asphalt overlay on this section of Shea Boulevard as a part of this project. ADOT's now confirmed that we cannot do that. So
can't do it. Okay.
Yeah.
So we get our money back.
So we'll have to, at the end of the project, we'll get our money back.
Okay. Any questions, Councilman Brown?
Thank you, Mayor. Randy, what's the time frame if we were to move forward with this project? When would it take place?
I really hate to. The big constraint's really the ADOT review times. At the concept design, 30%, 60%, 90% to pre-final and final design. So that's really a major bottleneck. But yeah, we're probably looking at. We have some plans, previously done, so that we can shorten some of the time. But we're looking at least 2 years, maybe 3 years, before we actually are under construction. And that's totally a guess.
Couldn't be quicker than that?
Could be.
Could be. I've got it. Thank you very much.
As close as you're gonna get, right?
Again, Mayor Callen, members of council, as the county engineer talked about, we're totally at bay, held at bay by the ADOT reviews. And this is a big project for us, but it's not a big project for ADOT. So, we have to wait in our line for that, and it's gonna take some time, unfortunately. Haven't dealt with partnerships with ADOT before.
Okay, any other questions for Randy? Councilwoman Hanson?
Randy, you were talking about the advantages of this, like certainly for people on bicycles and cars being able to pull off. Was it in this area that we had that fatality where a cyclist was hit by a car? I thought it was on that stretch of Shea.
Mayor, Councilman Hanson, I'm not, I'm drawing a blank as to what accident you're talking about.
I believe it was in the other lane, other direction.
Yeah, westbound, that went out.
It was westbound heading between Fountain Hills Boulevard and Palisades.
Yes, ma'am, there was an accident westbound. That's not this section.
Okay, thank you.
But I'm sure it's gonna add to the safety on the other side, since we are aware that we do have accidents in that area, so that's a good point. Councilman Yates?
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the intergovernmental agreement with ADOT for the construction of Shea Boulevard eastbound bike lane. Second.
Do you have any speaker cards? No, ma'am. All right, any further council discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mayor, 7-0. All right, thank you. Thank you, Randy. Don't go away. Consideration of Resolution 2013-42, an IGA with ADOT to construct paved dirt shoulders on Fountain Hills Boulevard, and that would be Pinto Drive to Segundo Drive. Okay?
Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council, the town engineer has another project that we have which requires a intergovernmental agreement to initiate this project.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. The map on the overhead shows the project limits of our proposed shoulder paving project on Fountain Hills Boulevard. In 2010, MAG selected the town for $255,000 in federal aid CMAQ grant funding for this shoulder paving project. As you will remember, the council approved the design contract with Sunrise Engineering, and that engineering status is about 60% complete at the current time. And I jumped two sections. This is a diagram of where the bike lanes will go on. Bike lanes, paved shoulders on Fountain Hills Boulevard. The areas that are skipped already have full width pavement and curb and gutter on them. This project is shown in the town's FY 13-14 budget with this is a typical section of the roadway, which we're putting on 5 foot of shoulder width on each side. In the number of areas, we will thicken that shoulder pavement and base such that it can accommodate a future turn pocket and or climbing lane coming up from Shea Boulevard. The benefits of this project are vehicles can pull off the roadway without creating dust. We'll have a paved shoulder to reduce runoff the road accidents. It'll improve the drainage. We'll have a right turn pocket that will be in this project at Trevino Drive going northbound. Pavement thickness will accommodate future turn pockets at 3 other locations and for the future climbing lane there from Pinto to King Street. Bicyclists will be able to ride on the paved shoulder instead of in the traffic lanes, and pedestrians will be able to walk on this paved shoulder. The ultimate widening of Fountain Hills Boulevard is years away. It's not in our current 10-year plan, and it probably won't be in 20 years. The town attorney's office has reviewed and approved this IGA, and staff does recommend approval.
Okay. Councilman Brown, do you want to ask how long this one's going to be?
I'm afraid to. I've lived long enough to see it completed. Randy, how long will it take to complete this?
Mayor, Councilman Brown, we are in the design process and have been for almost a year, so take a year off of what I said for Shea Boulevard.
All right.
So we're probably a year and a half away from construction.
Well, it'll be a nice addition.
Yeah, I think we've all seen people walking in the dirt and bicycles that you've had to, it's pretty dangerous if you've got to actually, you're driving and you've got to move into the other lane because of the bike being there, and you're pretty close to those bicyclists. So, yeah, this is definitely going to improve the safety of the roads. Councilman Hanson.
And Randy, and all those pros that you mentioned, all the erosions that when we really do have rains, it's going to be such a huge improvement on that street. So, if I may, I'd like to move to approve an intergovernmental agreement with ADOT to construct paved dirt shoulders, Fountain Hills Boulevard, Pinto to Segundo.
Mayor, second.
Mayor, second? Okay. Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
All right, any further council discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is 7-0.
W.
Thank you, Randy.
Engineer soup too tonight.
Ken, do you have anything else for us?
Only, Mayor, that it's in the second quarter and Sun Devils up 21-0.
Oh, okay. That's all. And, okay, then I'll just entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a
Second.
And all in favor?
Go Devils.
Thanks, everyone.
ASU guys.
20 seconds left.